On May 6th, Scotland will vote, and once again, most people in Scotland don't understand the vote. The Scottish Parliament has 129 members, referred to as MSPs, or Members of Scottish Parliament. 73 of these are constituency MSPs. They are elected in a first-past-the-post system, which is the same one the UK uses, and sometimes the constituency vote is referred to as the first vote. When you vote in a Scottish election, you get two votes. People refer to the constituency vote as the first vote, and the regional vote as the second vote. The regional vote elects 56 regional MSPs on the regional list system. Now, for actual parliamentarians, it doesn't matter if you're a constituency or regional MSP, you have the exact same power. But in terms of how you get elected, we elect 73 via constituencies and we elect 56 via regions. There are 73 constituencies, therefore. There are 8 regions. Each region has 7 MSPs. So you can see that in this graphic here. You can see that you can divide Scotland into 8 regions: Highlands and Islands, North East Scotland, Mid Scotland, Fife, Lothian, etc. And that you can divide Scotland into 73 constituencies: East Lothian, Linlithgow, Edinburgh Central, Glasgow Kelvin, and you can see that each region has between 7 and 9 constituencies within it. Okay, there are no constituencies that border multiple regions, and constituencies can have 7, 8 or 9. Sorry, regions can have 7, 8 or 9 constituencies. You can see here how the constituency borders are drawn. Obviously, constituencies are divided by population, meaning in an ideal world, all constituencies would have the same number of people in it. That's why constituencies in central Scotland are geographically very small, whereas constituencies in desolate places such as Highlands Islands are very large. And this sort of applies with regions as well. You can see here, this is 2016 results, that the SNP won almost all the constituencies. The Tories got a few, Labour got, I think, 3, but by and large, the SNP won all the constituencies in 2016. Now, Scotland here in this graphic is divided into its 8 regions. Obviously, you can see that Glasgow is geographically a very small region. Highlands and Islands is an enormously large region geographically, but each region gets 7 MSPs all the same, and each region is roughly the same number of people within it. What you can also notice from this graphic is that while the SNP got far more regional votes than any other party in 2016, they got far less regional seats than the Tories and Labour, and indeed they even got less regional seats than the Greens. And this is basically because if you win a lot of constituency seats, it's borderline impossible to win lots of regional seats. What that means is that if a party is going to win loads of constituency seats, voting for them with your second vote or your regional vote is likely to be a bit of a wasted vote. But we'll get into that more later. So how do we calculate regional list seats? What happens is that in each region, we take the regional list votes for a party, or the second votes for a party, and we divide all those votes by the number of MSPs plus 1 that already exist for that party in that region. So, and you do this one seat at a time. So for the first seat on the Highlands and Islands list, you take all the regional votes for each party. You then divide those votes by the number of MSPs that that party has. So that would be the constituency MSPs at this point. And then whoever has the highest number of votes after the dividing gets that list seat. A lot of people at this point turn off because it sounds like gobbledygook. It does sound a little bit wild at first. The best way to explain it is to work through an example, so let's do that now. So let us take the Glasgow regional list. Glasgow is in fact a region. It is a region that has 9 constituencies in it, and in 2016, the SNP did win all 9 constituencies. So each constituency in Glasgow, Glasgow Kelvin, Glasgow Maryhill, Glasgow Shettleston, all those constituencies, the SNP candidate got more votes than any other candidate, and so the SNP won all 9 constituency MSP seats in Glasgow. Now, the regional votes that I've put on this graphic here are not accurate to the election. I just wanted to use big whole numbers to make it easier to work through an example. It is, however, true that in 2016 the SNP did win 9 constituency MSPs. And it is also true that Glasgow has 7 regional MSPs up for grabs. So, how does Glasgow determine who gets the regional spots? There are 7 regional spots, regional MSPs up for grabs. You do them one by one. So you take the first one, seat 1, and you take everyone's votes, regional votes, second votes, if you wish to think of them like that, and you divide those votes by the number of MSPs that party has in the region plus 1. You have to do the plus 1 because you can't divide by 0. It's just a silly math thing. So let's pretend that we're the election people. What do? We take the votes. So the SNP got 100,000 regional votes, as you can see. For seat 1, we take those 100,000 votes and we divide them by 9 plus 1, or 10. 100,000 regional votes divided by 10 is 10,000. So that's how many votes the SNP get for seat 1 of the regional list. The Tories got 50,000 regional votes. It's divided by 0 plus 1 because they didn't have any constituency MSPs, so they're left with 50,000 votes. And Labour and Green, same story. They had 75,000 and 60,000 regional votes, but they didn't have any constituency MSPs, so they don't have any MSPs yet at all. So they retain their full 75,000 and their full 60,000 votes. What that means is that seat 1 is going to go Labour, because Labour have got 75,000 votes left after the division, but the SNP only have 10,000, the Tories only 50, and the Greens only 60. Labour have the most, so Labour get the MSP. Now we move to seat 2, the second seat on the Glasgow regional list. And it's the same calculation for most of the parties. The SNP still got 100,000 votes, they still have 9 MSPs, so they still get 10,000. But it's different for Labour, because they had 75,000 regional votes, but they now have an MSP, because they got an MSP on seat 1. Therefore, their 75,000 votes is divided by 1 plus 1, which is 2. So 75,000 divided by 2, you half it, you get 37,500. What this means is that for seat 2, we can clearly see that the SNP only have 10,000 votes, Tories only have 50, Labour now only have 37.5, but Greens remain with 60, and so Greens will get seat 2 on the Glasgow regional list. And then you can see in seat 3, the Greens will have their votes divided because we have an MSP now, and so the Tories will actually get seat 3. And if you want to, you can pause the video and work out who will get seat 4, and indeed you could work out who will get seat 5, 6 and 7 if you so wish. Bear in mind these results are not real, I just made the numbers up to make the example more obvious. Now, this video is not going to tell you who to vote for because that is really up to you, depending on what your life priorities are. But there are some conclusions we can draw just from the math. Parties who get a lot of constituency votes will not do well on the regional list, even if they get lots of second votes or lots of regional votes as well. Because if you get a lot of constituency votes, your regional votes are going to be divided by 7 divided by 8 divided by 9, and they're just not going to stack up against parties whose votes aren't being divided because we didn't get any constituency seats. That's why on that graphic earlier, we saw that in 7 of the 8 regions, the SNP either got 0, in fact in 6 of the 8 regions, the SNP got 0 regional MSPs despite getting almost 1 million regional votes. Because they had too many constituency MSPs, their votes were divided too much. If your goal is to maximise the seats of any one party, just vote for that one party, obviously. You can vote for the same party twice. There's no law against it. You can give both your constituency and regional vote to the same party. However, people who think that both votes SNP maximises the chance of a pro-independence parliament do not understand the voting system. And this isn't a video about how to like get independence or whatever. That someone else can make that video. This is just about the voting system. If you're going to vote, quote unquote, tactically to try and achieve an aim out with maximising one party's power, for example, trying to get more EU parties elected, or more independence parties, or more unionist parties, or more left-wing parties, or more conservative parties, it's worth knowing how the voting system works. So, just to show you my working on the both votes SNP thing, so I don't get shit in the comments for it. So these are, on the left, the actual results from 2016. As you can see, the SNP got 42% of the regional votes, the second votes, and in total the SNP got 63 MSPs. That's across the constituencies and the regions. But what you can see on the right, and there's calculators online that you can check my working here if you really want to, plug in these percentages, you will get the result. But what you can see is that if SNP voters who voted both votes SNP had in fact given the SNP their constituency vote and the Greens their regional vote, they would have ended up with 59 MSPs for the SNP, which is 4 less, but not a huge difference, and there would have been 31 Green MSPs, an increase of 25. And those extra 25 Green MSPs, Greens being pro-independence, that's why I'm using them for this example, those would have come because the Tories would have lost 15 seats and Labour would have lost 11. What this essentially means is that in 2016, if you gave your second vote to the SNP, unless you're in the south of Scotland, it probably didn't really count because your vote was divided by 10 before it was counted. So the SNP didn't get any seats out of you giving your second vote to them. But what that meant was that the Tories and Labour got a lot of seats because instead of your vote going to the party you might have actually wanted to win, it went to either Tories or Labour. Had SNP voters voted SNP Labour, Labour would have gotten a lot more seats, and you'd have had a more centre-left parliament. Had SNP voters voted SNP Tory, you'd have a lot more Tories and you'd have a more right-wing parliament. Had they voted SNP Green, you'd have had a lot more Greens and you'd have a more pro-independence parliament. But it wouldn't have really affected the number of SNP MSPs any which way. So those votes were kind of a waste. Now, you should vote however you want. This is not a video telling you how to vote, but it is good to vote understanding the electoral system. The SNP are going to win almost all the constituencies in 2021. So if you give them your second vote, it probably won't result in them getting any extra seats. You can still give them your second vote if you want, but it probably won't matter. So yeah, and maybe in 5 years' time it'll be the same for another party. So if you made it to the end of the video, thanks so much for watching. I hope it was really helpful. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. And yeah, thanks for taking the time.